everyone. Welcome. I'm Nora Tobin, health and wellness partner to Marriott International Luxury Brands, the Ritz-Carlton Yacht Collection, and a variety of global Fortune 500 organizations. I am so pleased to be here with you today. I know it's been a very stressful time, and my goal for this session is to deliver strategies that meet you where you need, whether you're traveling or at home, and just elevate what you're already doing well. So a lot of times we think wellness can be overwhelming or we have to change our entire routine. And you're already an incredibly high performer. So these strategies are really meant to serve you where you are and just upgrade what you're doing and make an impact on your day without having to sacrifice time and, most importantly, enjoyment. So just as an overview for today, I'm going to take you through 4 different pillars of well-being. I tend to focus on these 4 pillars for business professionals because each one is going to enhance performance, improve concentration, enhance overall optimal well-being, and really help with all of your personal and professional goals by giving you the optimal energy in the midst of your day. Before we get going, I am going to take you through just a really brief breathing exercise. Very often, and I find myself doing this almost daily, where I am just running from one thing to the next or going from Zoom to Zoom. And it takes me a few minutes just to drop the last thing I had just done and be able to shift gears, mentally shift gears into the present moment. It's very natural for our brains to try and catch up to that pace. And we might miss out on a few minutes of whatever that next activity or experience is. So it can be really helpful to practice the 3 and 5 breath, and I will take you through it. But just as a background, all it is shifting the breath to a longer exhale. So it's a 3 count in, 5 count out. And just doing that a couple rounds can actually shift the nervous system. So very often we are in fight or flight mode, whether it's stress from the day, notifications going off on the phone, just the overwhelming workload that we might have, or just our own, different goals that we're trying to meet. It could be even positive, but we do feel a certain amount of stress in a day, which is going to take the nervous system and put us into the stress response. When we're in that response, we're breathing from our chest. We might not be feeling as energized as we possibly could. We might actually be storing fat, specifically in the abdominal region. There's a lot of things that can come from stress. So one simple way to manage our stress and also bring us into the present moment is the 3 and 5 breath. So sitting up nice and tall, dropping your shoulders down and back. So just this simple act of sitting up straight can actually play a role on our hormone balance. Many times when I find myself doing this, where I am hunched over my computer or my phone, very often when we're in that position, our cortisol, that stress hormone, rises. So just sitting up tall can actually shift your physiology. Next step is just to drop your shoulders down and back, close your eyes, just listening to the sound of my voice. Inhale through the nose for 3, 2, 1. Long exhale through the nose for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Inhale. Long exhale. Inhale. Exhale. One more. Inhale. Long exhale. Nice. You can gently open your eyes. So you may have felt a subtle shift. It's very, very subtle. So knowing that you can incorporate this breathing technique in the midst of going from one Zoom to the next. If you're about to give a presentation, for me, I selfishly incorporate this breathing technique because it really helps calm my nerves, calm anxiety when public speaking, or even going into a social event. A lot of times we can carry additional stress and anxiety going into a social experience. That 3 and 5 breath can be a great anchoring tool. So that sets us up right to go into our stress segment. I would love to make this as interactive as possible. I wish I was in person with you right now to be able to see you and answer questions in person, but we would love to pause between each segment and take any questions you may have. So I will ask Yinka to come back up onto the stage and share your questions. So definitely use the chat feature. So stress, I like to start with this one because it seems very relevant at this time. And it also is something that can be both positive and negative in our life. We want to be able to incorporate some versions of positive stress and release some of the patterns of chronic stress. So just as a background, what happens when we're stressed is our cortisol, which is that stress hormone, rises. It's really supposed to serve us in the morning. It's supposed to rise in the morning. Cortisol, adrenaline, norepinephrine, these are hormones that are naturally produced in the body that just get us going in our day. What happens though with the artificial light from our screens, from different microstressors like notifications, there's obviously many ways we can get that stress level up. When that happens, cortisol essentially is supposed to rise, fall, rise and fall. And by the evening, it's meant to fall, setting us up for a good night's sleep. When we're going from, again, experiencing all those different stressors, cortisol just keeps going up. Our body knows that it needs to keep up with the demands. It knows it needs to keep up with the pace. And so what cortisol is going to do is start to pull from other hormones. So I like to refer to it as the hormone triangle. So cortisol goes up and then it pulls from these two other places on the triangle. It's either going to pull from the thyroid, which governs weight management and metabolism, or it's going to pull from estrogen and testosterone, which governs a number of factors in the body, including sex drive. So as you can see, when we're stressed, no matter what we're doing from a fitness and nutrition perspective, if our body's pulling from the thyroid, we are going to be storing abdominal fat. It's been proven actually that high stress leads to stored abdominal fat. We're going to feel tired and wired. We're not going to have that same vibrant energy. We may have low sex drive or other different issues that show up in the body. So I like to give background on each topic just because I think it's for us as all, again, highly intelligent thinkers, knowing what is happening in the body and then being able to implement a couple strategies is a really good way to be successful. So a couple strategies in order to lower cortisol and just optimize that triangle is going to be, number one, mindfulness-based stress reduction. So we did a version of that 3 and 5 breath. It should not have to take more than a minute or two to shift the body out of that fight or flight mode and into that calm state. So we don't necessarily have to go to a long yoga class or meditate for 30 minutes, although that is wonderful. And if you're doing that, keep going. But a lot of times we're in the midst of our day and we're not able to stop and take time to go do those things. So what's really nice is you can know that tapping into the breathing, even just standing up from your desk and doing a couple stretches or walking outside without your phone is going to be a great way to calm that nervous system, improve focus, and balance that triangle. Another strategy is going to be getting rid of any notifications that are not serving you on your phone. So many of us come from, families, or obviously everyone has great friends and families that need to communicate with you. So there's a certain amount of notifications that you can't turn off, but there's also many notifications throughout the entire day that can probably be turned off, and then you can check that app at a certain time. The reason why this is so important is because our body senses those microstressors in the same way it senses running from a lion. Sounds wild, but it is actually the same hormones that are produced, and that leads to chronic stress. So for example, if we are getting those big tings on our phone and we're feeling that low level stress, that can eventually lead to chronic stress. So I would say just turn off notifications whenever possible, and then swipe, if possible, all of those apps from the main homepage of your screen to the next page over. This seems a little bit silly and a little bit out there, but behavioral science did a study at Stanford that showed that those who actually moved just all the apps on the phone to one page over, so you turn on your phone and it's just a photo when you unlock it, and it's preferably a photo, a nature photo or a family photo or something that drives happiness or gratitude. The participants who had that versus those who just had all the apps that are naturally laid on the phone, their cortisol levels were significantly different than those who actually had all of those notifications and just the apps. So simple, but actually makes a big difference on your physiology. The last thing that you can do, and then I'll pause for any questions on stress, is regulate the circadian rhythm. So the circadian rhythm is the body's internal 24-hour clock. It gets us up in the morning, and as I said, there's certain hormones like cortisol and adrenaline that are produced through the circadian rhythm. In the evening, we're actually naturally supposed to produce melatonin and set us up for a deep night's sleep. What's happening with these different stressors is it's interrupting the circadian rhythm, especially light. Light has a massive role on our optimization of the circadian rhythm. So there's a really simple way to just get back into balance, and that is getting out in the morning light. So in the morning, typically between 8 and 11, it's a safe time to get out with no sunglasses or sunscreen, just for a few minutes. You don't have to go for that long. But that light that's being emitted right into the eyes or right into the skin is actually going to help regulate that circadian rhythm. And in turn, it's going to help with deeper sleep because you've got that sunlight in the morning as opposed to just artificial light. So a really great way to not only regulate those hormones, but also get that vitamin D that's so essential for the immune system. So there are a number of stress relief techniques. There's so many great resources out there, but I find that sometimes when we get really busy or we're traveling all the time, sometimes you just need a couple of those simple yet effective strategies that can actually make a difference. But it doesn't have to just be, your questions don't have to be just on these strategies that I shared. I'd love to answer any questions you might have on stress management and stress relief. And I'll pause there. And Yinka, if there are any questions, you can just jump in. Otherwise, I can move on to our next segment.
We do have one question, Nora. The question is, do you have any suggestions on how to turn off for everyone working from home? I find it so hard to step away, and before I know it, I've worked 12 hours.
It's a really great point, and I think it's very easy to just get up in the morning and go right into your day, and there's obviously no balance anymore from even just walking to the subway or walking to get a coffee or whatever it might be. So my suggestion would be to, and this has helped me while working from home in this time, is just set up a routine where you know that there's going to be some transitions in your day. So for example, if you are somebody like me who I love getting right into my work first thing in the morning, I find that my brain is ready for that. I want to just dive right in. There's been a lot of suggestions of waiting to start work and doing your meditation and doing things in the morning first. But for me, I just know I work best when I can just jump right in. But that being said, I schedule in a 20 or 30 minute break around 11. So if I start my day at 6 and I can go pretty hard in my work until about 11, and then take that break 20, 30 minutes, an hour if possible, but sometimes that doesn't happen, to go get outside or work out, or even just shift the energy by reading something that's of leisure or going and walking and listening to a podcast. That routine shift can really help stimulate your focus and allow you to just, again, break up the monotony of the day. I would also say that just having foods and things at home that can actually enhance your energy and your mood is going to be really helpful as well. So for example, first thing in the morning, this is a very easy one. You can integrate this technique called Japanese water therapy, which is drinking, it sounds like a lot, but 1 liter of water before your coffee or tea or food. And that essentially just helps flush out your system, flush out toxins, and it gives you this very, very noticeable energy that can help throughout the day. So it's just an example of a routine that, again, doesn't cost anything, doesn't have to be a lot of time or work, but just shifting that time or just giving yourself a specific task, just a specific routine before your day starts or in the midst of your day can be really helpful.
We have one more question. What are some of your favorite meditation apps?
I'm so glad you asked this question because I have to be honest, I've said for so many years, I really need to start meditating. I've read so many studies on the benefits of improving gray matter or, changing your neural connections. There's so many wonderful benefits, but I found that I just wasn't taking the time and I felt too busy to meditate and all the things that you may have also felt. But I do have to say that when I downloaded the Calm app, and there's a lot of great ones out there, Headspace is another one. I like Calm because it has so many meditations to choose from. They have ones for sleep, they have ones for stress, energy. What I have been getting used to doing is, and this is actually a probably part of the strategy of the last question, is around 3 o'clock, I know my energy starts to fall and I just don't have that same focus or drive. So I've been scheduling it on my Google Calendar. I just put in 3 to 3:10 and I step away from my desk. I try not to plan a call in that time if possible. It's not always possible, but if you can do it, step away from the computer, turn on the app and just get outside or just go lay on the couch or whatever works best. But I found that the 3 o'clock hour, just taking 10 minutes, has made a big difference in that monotony of working from home.
This is in relation to drinking water. Is it better for the water to be cold or room temperature?
It's often said that room temperature is better on the system first thing in the morning. I think it's mostly personal preference, but it is a little harder to drink a lot of water when it's cold. So if you can do room temperature, that's probably ideal. And then Yinka, I'm just going to go into that next segment, but if you have additional questions, I will of course pause after our next segment. So our next segment is on energy. So our energy is of course our vibrance. It's our ability to get the maximum amount of work done, go play with kids, be part of your social network. It's just very clear why energy is such an important sustained process. And there's a lot of things that can pull our energy away from us and make us feel like by the end of the day, we either have, burned through our battery, or we felt like we did a ton of work but didn't get anything done. Or on the nutrition front, we might not be fueling in the way that's really helping our brain. So energy is quite a large topic, but I like to focus on a couple key segments within energy. So nutrition is a big one, fitness, and then just lifestyle changes that can really enhance our energy output. So as a background for specifically nutrition, but fitness and lifestyle factors play into this. From a chemistry perspective, when we think of energy, like the calories that are coming into our body, a lot of times, especially when it comes to weight management conversations, we think of energy via calories coming in versus calories going out. And that's how we're going to get our physique as great as we can get it or energy sustained. But it's really more of a chemical process than a calories in, calories out process. So there's a hormone in our system, in our bodies, called insulin. You may have already heard this, but I'll just quickly describe. So insulin is what is going to help manage glucose in the bloodstream. So for example, when we eat, most things that are in packaged form are going to raise our blood sugar, along with processed carbohydrates and sugar and sodas and fruit juices. So anything in that category, when we're eating something in or drinking something that's going to raise the blood sugar, insulin is released in the bloodstream. And with that, insulin is shuttling out the glucose from the bloodstream. So our body, it's this miracle, really, that we can sense this and be able to become efficient and take that extra glucose out. What's happening with our modern diet and just reaching for processed foods when, we probably could get away, there's times where we're going to have to eat processed foods, but a lot of times this becomes just something we do because it's just part of our system. But with those processed foods, sugary drinks, any kind of processed carbohydrate, we're releasing so much glucose into the bloodstream, and that insulin just cannot keep up. And we release too much insulin, which then we become insulin resistant. And that's where we can get into big trouble with a variety of chronic diseases and weight gain. So all that being said, there are ways to manage insulin and also create the source of energy based on the routine of the way we eat and the foods we're eating without, again, sacrificing too much enjoyment. So one of the best techniques for meeting all of those goals that I just mentioned is the 8-hour eating window, also known as intermittent fasting. Fasting definitely sounds deprivational. I was very against fasting for a long time. Just thinking of fasting seems like I was missing out. But all it is actually just shortening the time in which you eat. You're not changing everything you're eating. So for example, you'd start eating around, let's say 11 a.m. and end around 7 or 8 or even 9. Sometimes we have those social experiences, but you can shift it in any way that works for you. So if you start at 9, you'd finish earlier or start later and finish later, whatever works for your lifestyle. I find it's nice to start a little later so I can go out or meet friends for dinner, and I am not worried about what time I started eating. What's happening in that 16 hours that you're not eating, you can still drink coffee, thank God. You can also drink tea. You can add in things like heavy cream or even blending grass-fed butter into your coffee, which sounds pretty bizarre, but it keeps you in that fasted state and it gives you calories. So one thing that is happening in that 16 hours that you're not eating, your body is essentially rebooting its own battery. So the mitochondria of the cells are your powerhouse for energy. You need those to constantly be essentially being refreshed in order to feel your best, in order to get the most fat burning, in order to feel energy to the brain. There's a lot that goes on because of these mitochondria. The 16 hours you're not eating, your body is going into autophagy, so it's rapid cellular turnover. We're able to clear toxins efficiently out of the system. We're also balancing leptin and ghrelin hormones, which are those hunger hormones. So when we are able to fast, we're going to lower that ghrelin response, that starvation feeling, and improve the leptin response, which is that satisfaction feeling. We're also able to burn fat for fuel, which gives us the best results physically without, again, having to count calories. It's also very exciting because you're able to eat within reason. We're not going to go crazy on donuts every day, but I find that when I travel, and I know many of you travel to incredible destinations, and just being in the travel industry, there's so much great food out there and wine and all the things that are available to us. So within that 8-hour eating window, you can enjoy that food from that place that you're in, or you can get away with the fabulous bottle of wine, or the if you want to splurge on chocolate cake. There's your system is set up in a way because of that fasted state that you're burning fat much more efficiently. So it's a great way, it's a great strategy when we talk about healthy travel. It's a really good strategy to implement and not feel like you're missing out on anything. I would also say, last note on fasting, you don't have to do it every day, which is ideal. You can do it every day and it's going to be great for your system, but you can also just do it a couple days a week and actually see a big difference. I always recommend it when people are starting out fasting, just start with Monday, Tuesday, or Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. That's typically the time when you are in your most repeatable routine. And that gives you a chance to not have to think too much about the fasting and what you're eating and going out and all of that. I also really like to stop fasting on the weekends because then you can have brunch and go out and you feel really good doing so. Another strategy for energy, and this is on the fitness front, and this also will help manage insulin, is interval training. So interval training is essentially just shortening your workout, similar to fasting. You're shortening the workout to essentially take any exercise, whether you like to swim or run or just do body weight training like push-ups and squats. You're going as fast as you can after a decent warm-up. You're going as fast as you can for 30 seconds to a minute, and then rest, either stop completely or just take your run down to a walk or whichever is appropriate for that workout that you're doing, but really slow it down for a minute. You alternate between going as fast as you can to slowing it down. They did this incredible study through Harvard that took 2 groups over the course of 12 weeks. And the group who did the interval training, and then there was the group who did a steady state jog for an hour. So the interval group did the training for 4 minutes. The steady state joggers did an hour. While jogging, of course, has amazing benefits on your heart and cardiovascular system, what they saw with the study, and it was a very comprehensive study, that showed that those 4 minutes of training actually did a number of things for managing blood sugar, improving that fat burning capacity, losing body mass index or lowering body mass index, losing fat. Whereas the steady state joggers, they saw benefits in their heart strength, but there wasn't really any of those noticeable physical benefits. So it's a really good strategy for whether it's energy, weight management, just overall keeping your body strong. It's also a great strategy for travel because it doesn't take long. So a lot of times I find myself, especially going into New York, you go hard all day, go out for dinners, wake up, at a pretty early hour, and you go right into the next day. And a lot of times I had tried to balance the sleep, like if I should just stay in bed for the extra 30 minutes or if I should go work out. It was definitely a question as to what is going to be more useful or beneficial. And I found that when I travel now, I do get in just 5 minutes of interval training in the morning. Gives me great energy. It doesn't take away from my sleep. And it really sets the body up for burning calories efficiently. So interval training actually burns calories for 24 hours after the workout compared to other types of workouts. So really, every workout is a great workout. As long as you're moving, there's benefits to it. But interval training specifically is one of those workouts that actually can shift your state and shift your fat burning power well after the workout's over. So I recommend doing interval training a couple times a week. Ideally, you can alternate between high intensity workouts, whether it is interval training or strength or any kind of cardio you like, with low intensity workouts the next day, alternating one at a time. So for me, I definitely got into trouble when I was going all out, high intensity every day, thinking that I was really serving my body well. I was trying to meet certain goals, and my body just completely went the other direction where I was holding on to fat and I was feeling pretty burnt out. And because of this, we're taxing our nervous system, we're taxing the thyroid. So try, if possible, to alternate between high intensity and low intensity Low intensity can just be a walk or yoga or Pilates or something just not intense. And that can be a really good combination for workout routines. The final thing I'll say, and then I will pause to take any of your questions on the energy front and specifically on the nutrition front is, and I guess this goes right into lifestyle changes too, but for many of us, and I was right there with this thinking, which was really cutting out fat. And unfortunately, that's just not a great message for us to hear, because fat, it makes up about 60% of our brain is fat, our cellular membrane is fat. We need a certain amount of fat to be able to think clearly and be energized. We also don't raise our insulin when we're eating fat. We do raise our insulin when we're having carbohydrates, processed carbohydrates, or even just a little bit of protein. We obviously need all of those things. I'm not a proponent of cutting out any one macronutrient, but fat, adding in fat can have this amazing effect on the brain and the body. So when I say fat, I'm talking healthy fat, and there are forms of fat that are really easy to incorporate, again, especially during travel. So I like to take a bag of macadamia nuts, almonds, walnuts. I throw a bunch of dark chocolate in that as well. Dark chocolate, about 70% or above, has incredible antioxidants and that healthy fat that's going to help actually boost our serotonin, that feel-good hormone. So taking a pack like that when you're traveling is really helpful. While you're home, or even when you're out to eat, adding avocado to things. So I always try and add avocado whenever possible. Using olive oil or avocado oil. At higher heats, coconut oil. Olives, hard cheeses, grass-fed beef if possible, nuts and seeds, wild-caught fish and eggs. All of those are very rich in healthy fats, omega-3s that can really help lower inflammation and improve our overall energy. When we go out to eat, which I love going out to eat, so I'm definitely not getting rid of that, but we do want to just be aware of the industrial seed oils that are being used in our food or when they're making the food. So industrial seed oils come in the forms of canola oil, safflower oil, and corn, any kind of corn-based oil. So what's happening is these are being used to make foods at high heat. They oxidize, which means they're going to become very inflammatory for our system. We'll talk a little bit about inflammation when we get to our immune section, but it is super essential, as we know, to lower inflammation for protecting us against pathogens and chronic disease. So all that being said, there's a lot of info in there, but I would say try the fasting, even a couple days a week. Can definitely shift our state. Incorporate high intensity intervals, rotate them with low intensity workouts, and then just whenever possible, incorporate healthy fats. And that's really going to serve our overall energy, our fat burning power, and our focus. So I will pause and just see if there are any questions from you guys.
We have several for fasting, so I'll get right into it. The first two questions relate to coffee and or coffee breaks. So the first one is, Starbucks is such a popular midday run. From what you're saying, this is probably not a good choice. The other question about coffee is, I thought coffee cream breaks the fasting due to the calories.
Two good questions. So first, on the Starbucks front, yes, it's extremely convenient, and there's ways to utilize Starbucks to give you the beneficial coffee or tea that's going to help support whether it's your fast or just your day. So I would say, number one, if you are getting Starbucks in the morning and you do want to fast in the morning, heavy cream. So it's been shown that a little bit of heavy cream, meaning like a tablespoon or two, it's pure fat. And so again, it's not taking you out of that fasted state. The true fasters who are utilizing fasting to essentially shift cancer markers or dive really deep into healing a chronic disease those will absolutely say, those professionals will absolutely say, do not have anything in the morning except the black coffee or tea, which is, they are right to an extent. You do get a little less of the autophagy benefit. But if the goal is to feel better, to be more energized, to really accelerate that fat burning power, you can have that cream in the coffee. What is really something to be aware of and maybe want to shift away from is low fat or non-fat lattes. So even if you're not fasting, when we order a latte, we are essentially ordering the milk that is about 13 grams of sugar per serving, whereas cream is 0 grams of sugar. And it always seemed like the better choice to have a low fat drink, but that's actually just giving you a cup of a lot of sugar versus getting a breve from Starbucks, which is actually about, a fourth cream and the rest coffee. It's going to taste like a treat. It's going to be creamy, but it's going to help keep you burning fat for fuel. The other question on coffee, Yinka, actually, can you ask me the other question one more time? I got too sidetracked on this one.
The other question was, does coffee cream break the fasting because of the calories?
Oh, yes. Okay. So yeah, just right along the note is usually about 50 calories or less is going to help keep you in that fasted state. So if you like coconut cream or almond milk, just try and get the ones that are not sweetened, and then just about 50 calories or so. You don't have to go crazy. I usually put more cream in my coffee, and it's doing what I've just been mentioning with fasting. It's giving you that fat burning power. So yeah, so if you can just limit how much cream, but stick with cream, it's going to be a really good choice.
We have a couple more questions on fasting.
Yeah, great.
The next one is, so this is essentially just not eating breakfast when it comes to fasting. And then we have a second part, which is, will you see a benefit if you fast only once a week?
The breakfast comment or question is it's very valid to think that we absolutely need breakfast. We've been told for many, many years through a variety of marketing outlets that breakfast is the most important meal of the day. And I'll preface this by saying nutrition, there are many great nutrition strategies out there. So you can be somebody who has a bigger breakfast and just slowly eats less throughout the day and then has a very light dinner. I've never been able to do that successfully. I always found that my biggest dinners, or the times that I want my biggest meal, was at dinner. But it works. There's no question that eating a bigger breakfast and then, again, limiting how much you eat later definitely works. What I will say is, and the short answer to your question is yes, essentially just not eating breakfast. The reason why we can do this with not eating breakfast is, I like to describe it as almost 2 roller coasters at Disneyland, let's say. So you have one roller coaster where you're eating a breakfast that is rich in carbohydrates, that's going to process fuel really quickly in the system, versus either fasting or just having, let's say, scrambled eggs and avocado, so more healthy fat-based. That healthy fat-based roller coaster is just going to give you this nice, easy energy throughout the day, versus the glucose burning roller coaster, which is that more carbohydrate intensive breakfast, is going to lift you up and then bring you right back down. So it just has this effect. Breakfast in the morning has this effect on the system depending on what you eat. So fasting in the morning can give you really quick energy to the brain because you're not taking time to digest. And it gives your body a chance to essentially burn through the glycogen from the night before and allow you to feel your best throughout the day.
The next question that we have is, again, for fasting. If I am a morning workout person and I finish my workout by 7 a.m. every day, should I not eat until 11 a.m.?
Yes, that's also something that we've been told is we should eat right after our workout. And to an extent, that is true if you're running a marathon or if you're doing very heavy weight training. If you're a professional athlete, like there's definitely an exception to this rule, but Typically, presumably we've eaten the day before. We carry a certain amount of stores of energy from that food in our liver, glycogen. We want to burn through those stores before we add anything else into our system in order to stimulate fat burning, lower inflammation, and give our muscles the most repair. So actually, it's been shown that combining coffee, quality coffee, fasting in the morning, and working out, that kind of trifecta, has been shown to burn more fat, repair your muscles much quicker, giving you time to recover without having to eat something right after. So if you feel like you absolutely need something, the choice would be to have something more healthy fat-based. But if you don't feel that way, if you just feel like you're supposed to eat something, know that your system is set up to actually fast in the morning while you're working out, and then you just start your normal meal by 11 a.m.
This is in relation to your statement about oil. For an everyday oil, what should we use instead of canola?
For cooking, so there are the risk of using olive oil or avocado oil, which are amazing oils that have a lot of anti-inflammatory, I can't speak today, properties. Those are going to be great for your salads, to pour over veggies, to put in soups, or really anywhere you want to add those is going to be really healthy. When we start making foods at higher heat, those can oxidize and start to become inflammatory. So coconut oil, or the other one that's more neutral, wants to make everything taste like coconut, is grapeseed oil. So those are typically the four that I will always stick to when I'm at home. So olive and avocado oil for low heat, or just foods that you want to add that to, grapeseed oil and coconut oil for high heat.
Our last question is, do you suggest monk fruit sweetener during fasting or stevia?
Both are fine. Both will not take you out of the fasted state if you just use a little bit of them. And by little, I just mean a teaspoon. Typically stevia there's a lot of versions of stevia and monk fruit, but stevia can be a little bit more pure. So stevia you can find stevia in liquid form. I haven't quite found monk fruit in liquid form yet, but sometimes they add other things to these sweeteners. So just look for something that is pure stevia or pure monk fruit and just add a little bit and you'll be fine.
We have one more question that came in.
Great.
Is there a guide for a newbie faster we can find online, or do you have a blog or a website?
Yes, no, absolutely. My Instagram is at Nora Tobin, and I do quite a bit of these strategies and daily content and recipes, my Nora's Naturals recipes. And then my website is just noratobin.com. My coffee website's norasnaturalscoffee.com. So yes, would love to keep in touch with you. And I still will get into more of the content, but yes, thank you. I'd love that. So the next segment, and I know there's just so much to cover in each segment. So hopefully a couple of these strategies you can walk away from the session with just one or two. I like to give a big picture, and then you can definitely know that you don't have to take it all with you or implement it all at once. So the next segment is on sleep. So I can imagine that if we were all together and I said, raise your hand if you have any trouble sleeping, almost 100% of the time, everybody's hands go up. And it's because there are these stressors and like light and all the things we talked about in the stress segment throughout the day that can absolutely interrupt our natural ability to sleep. The reason why sleep is so important, in addition to just feeling good and knowing we are refreshed going into our day, is it's this ultimate clean out for our brain. So when we sleep, about 95% of the glymphatic system is turned on, which means the brain expands and cerebral spinal fluid flushes through the brain, clearing out brain plaque and toxins. It's going to help ward off dementia. It's going to help with our focus and concentration. It's essentially going to be this ultimate repair for the brain. in order for all of that to take place, we do want to get into deeper stages of sleep. So when asked how much time should we be sleeping, the answer varies depending on the person, but we want to aim for about 7 to 9 hours because it takes a little while to drop into those deeper stages of sleep. When we're in those deeper stages of sleep, we're imprinting new memories, we're imprinting new information, we're creating memories, we're doing a lot of beneficial things that we just don't even realize are happening. We're creating new neural connections, we're flushing out old neurons from the brain. So a lot is happening when we're sleeping. So in short, for our sleep strategies, there are a couple tried and true ways to help with that deep stage of sleep. One is, and of course I preface everything with check with your doctor because there is one supplement I like to recommend, but again, just dependent on the person, but this is a very natural supplement. So magnesium is very deficient in our soil. We're not getting nearly as much magnesium naturally as we should be getting from our foods. And with that, we're not able to essentially utilize that very powerful mineral to help stimulate deep sleep. So I would recommend doing a magnesium powder or liquid. Again, if it's okay with the doc, but make sure that you are just getting a really pure source. So as with all supplements, you don't want a bunch of things combined. You want the purity of that product or that mineral that you're actually buying. And this can actually not only help sleep, but also anxiety. So I've had a number of clients who suffer from anxiety. They take magnesium in the morning, and that's actually a great way to just give you that nice, even keeled feeling. Another really easy way to regulate the sleep system, again, especially during travel, because we're not in our own bed, we're just not in that same routine, is going to be to keep the room cold. So our core temperature has to drop by about 2 degrees before we're able to drop into those deep stages of sleep. So keep that room cold, block out all light. It sounds a little nutty, but you can bring some black tape because it happens to be that hotel rooms have a lot of light that's just being emitted from different screens and things in the room. So just put a little piece of black tape over that. And then lying with your legs up the wall, which is actually a yogi technique, but it is just a really quick way to shift out of that fight or flight mode, which we talked about with that breathing as well, and into that calm, restful state. I know for me, a lot of times at events, which hopefully will be coming fully back soon, but when we're out at the cocktail hour or out, with clients or friends, we can get back to the hotel room or get back home and be pretty on. And so I find that just combining the Calm app with lying with our legs up the wall can be really calming on the nervous system. So I'll pause there. The sleep section is a little bit shorter, but I find that the energy and the nutrition, we can get much more into detail on that. But I'll stop there for a second before we go into our last segment, if anyone has questions on just general questions for sleep.
I do have one question from the last segment, Nora. I read that grapeseed and sunflower oil can be inflammatory. Is that correct?
Grapeseed, I have not seen that, but there's studies coming out all the time that, with new information on these different oils. So yes, being aware of what the latest is, I should know that, but I actually haven't heard of the grapeseed. Sunflower oil a lot of the times with oils, similar to our food, similar to coffee, similar to really anything we're taking in our system, it depends on the quality of it. So we could easily be getting an oil that is either a mixed oil that says grapeseed, but it has a lot of other things in it, or it's just not from a quality source. So just sticking to things that are higher in quality, if possible, can be really helpful just for overall inflammation.
All right, we have 2 questions on sleep. The first one is, what are your thoughts on melatonin? Because I love my melatonin gummies, but is this ultimately bad for me?
I'm with you. I love my beauty, the skin and hair gummies. It's like candy. I don't think it's bad for you. No. So melatonin is a tricky one because our bodies can get used to taking in that melatonin. And again, we produce a certain amount of our own melatonin. So we never want to be in a position where we're masking our own hormone production. So if possible, switch off. So take your melatonin maybe a couple times a week and then shift it with the magnesium. So a lot of times we just get used to these things and then the body basically says, all right, I don't need to create that anymore. So I'm going to, or I'll create less of that hormone. So I would just say being mindful and just switching off is really helpful.
The other question we have is, do you have any tips for a sound sleep for a crazy dreamer?
Ooh, that's a good one. I would say binaural beats. So binaural beats are a frequency essentially that you can listen to on headphones. They have binaural beats on Spotify. You just look up binaural beats and essentially there's a lot of playlists that come up. But all that it really is the frequency going from one ear to the next, kind of bouncing back and forth, has a very calming effect on the system. I don't know exactly what it has, the effect it would have on crazy dreams if that's happening often, but usually when we're having crazy dreams, that's more of a temperature dysregulation. But we do want to put some of these practices into play to just calm the system, so then you can get into those deeper stages of sleep without, all those wild dreams. So that could help as well. So I'm going to just shift into the last segment just for a few minutes, and then I'll allow you all to go on your way. And this one is about immunity. So we've talked actually about quite a few strategies. Everything today that we talked about will help strengthen the immune system. The nice thing about these 4 pillars is it's all a catalyst effect. So when we're managing stress, we're improving sleep, we're improving our repair of the body, immune system goes up. So it all works synergistically. So with immunity, we can think of it almost like a scale. So if inflammation is high, immunity is dampened. When inflammation is lowered, immunity strength goes up. So it's that scale that's going to help bring our body into balance and improve the strength of our immune system. So inflammation at the most basic level is essentially first supposed to help the body. So let's say we get cut our hand or cut somewhere on our body. There's a signal that's sent out that essentially helps heal that space on the body, which is creating inflammation to heal that. But it's acute inflammation, and then that inflammation goes away and we're healed. When we are stressed, when we're lacking sleep, when we're eating processed foods, we can start to create this inflammatory response that really doesn't go away. It's starting to become chronic. And when chronic inflammation takes place, there is a lot of different factors that can happen, including more prone to chronic disease, being prone to pathogens and viruses, not being able to regulate our weight. There's just a number of reasons. So very briefly, I would say with inflammation, there are a couple things that you can do to really help with the inflammatory response. One is as simple as walking, preferably without your phone. Walking can really play a role on the physical inflammation in our body. It doesn't raise cortisol like some other workouts can. It gives the body a chance to start that repair process, again, without taking up too much time. So you could do about 10 to 20 minute walk a day. If you can go longer, that's great, but it's a really simple process. The next one I would say is really shifting out of the processed foods, grabbing processed foods and into whole foods whenever possible. I know that's a strategy that's been around for a long time. I'm sure we've all heard it, but it's worth repeating because it really does matter. So when we're eating these processed foods, a lot of the packaged foods contain those industrial seed oils that I mentioned, like what we get when we go out to restaurants, even more so with packaged foods because it has to keep on the shelf for a long period of time. Those industrial seed oils are going to become very inflammatory in the body. And then the last thing I'll say with inflammation is actually getting cold. So it's a micro stress, or it's a positive stress. It's a short stress that's actually going to help regulate our system. So taking a cold shower or putting ice on the face, an ice cube on the face, can really actually help lower inflammation. I wish I had more time with you guys, but I will pause for a moment and just take any remaining questions, and then I'll close us out. Okay, I may have lost Dinka. Okay, no questions. Okay, great. So thank you all. I know that there's just quite a bit of information, but it's also, again, meant to just be a couple of different strategies that can really help shift our state, improve our mood, give us a chance to feel our absolute best. So in summary, I would say for the stress relief, incorporating the 3 and 5 breath, or even getting out in the sunlight, that circadian rhythm regulation can really help first thing in the morning. For sleep, lying with the legs up the wall, dropping our core temperature, blocking out artificial light. For energy, fasting even a couple of days a week, incorporating more healthy fats and high intensity intervals can be incredible for the system. And then inflammation, just really, I would say even one thing, just lowering those processed foods can make a big difference. So thank you very, very much. I am so grateful to join you. You're all incredibly inspiring. You've done so much in your careers, and I would just love to be able to stay in touch. We are doing a lot of work on the wellness front with corporate groups and leisure travel. We're doing a number of My Nora's Naturals coffee gifting, luxury retreats, content pre and post events, a lot of different virtual workshops. So please stay connected and reach out with anything you may need. Would love to stay in touch. And thank you again. I'm so appreciative of your questions, and just have a great rest of your day.